Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei. Today we're going to be talking about newcomers for MCC 2025. Who's left? Because 2024 MCC Season 4 had a lot in store in regards to people debuting for the first time, and also a lot of returnees that I didn't really keep track of here. But there was a lot of new people who we had never seen in MCC before this year, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in next year. Maybe we're going to see more, less, probably less, but maybe we're going to see just as many new people make their first appearance in MCC. This is a list from MCC Season 4 in order of, the events that they played in. There's a lot of notable people on this list. Obviously, like Feinberg, Smant being like probably the longest most requested player besides Mumbo, which was crazy that he obviously made an appearance this year. I think this one might actually be kind of out of order. Sorry, my bad. Tango, of course, and X being Hermit, and Skiz, like a bunch of Hermits, obviously, also coming for the first time, or playing for the playing for the first time in an MCC. And then also you see Eloise, and you see like a Mock Swamp debut, etc. A bunch of people from Pride. Twitch Rivals Europe had a bunch of people, including a lot of one-time like non-English players, which was really interesting. Like 50% of the roster, or roughly 50% of the roster, was newcomers, which is crazy. Then we had some newcomers from Ender Cup. We had some, Steve in, Twitch Rivals NA, and then we had a bunch of people in Haunted Hoedown. So that was the newcomers. In that regard, we also had two Spanish-speaking creators in Party 2. So that's the newcomers that we had so far, which kind of leads me to the next 2 points, which is the, if you don't know this, at the end of Season 3, there's a lot of discussion regarding MCC because people kind of thought at the time this might be the last one, but then also people are like, maybe they're going to change things, or what is happening next, in which one person decided to do a daily poll for who, the Reddit wanted to see the most in MCC. And it's very interesting to see the list and kind of seeing how far we've got so far, because at the end, or a month ago rather, at the end of 2024, or near the end of 2024, someone went over every single, event and newcomer and see if people got in or not. And obviously, I played, Curry played, Tango played. That's the top three players all played, which is incredible, of course. Then you have Skiz, Sandwich, Smant, X, Prince Zam from Rising, then Lewis and Fine and Jack wasn't really in, but he was a caster, so close enough, right? He was at least in proximity of, MCC. Fit also playing, and I think that's it. 11 out of the 40 people, I don't know if that includes Jack, but at least a quarter of the people that, were requested. Keep in mind how big of a sample size this actually is. This is 40 potential people. A quarter of those people played, which is a really, really high number, especially considering that some of the requested players on this list don't really make much sense, so I'm not surprised that they didn't actually get to play. But it does kind of bring up the question of who's left. Who is left to potentially be a newcomer for MCC in Season 5 in 2025? Because in my opinion, and this is a theory, there's absolutely zero backing for this, I think the amount of newcomers in MCC Season 5 is going to be lower. However, I think we're going to maybe see some of the one-timers from 2024, or maybe some other previous players make a return in MCC and maybe become regulars. Prime example of this, Curry Wei. I think Curry Wei is the next up high-end player to become a regular. I don't know if he's in the MCC Discord as of right now. For anyone who doesn't know, playing in Rivals doesn't put you in the MCC Discord. Rivals Discord is completely separate from the actual main one. So I think Curry makes sense, as the next good player to become a regular MCC participant. After that, as much as, it's my channel, I really do think I'm probably the one after that, which is very exciting in concept, of course. It shouldn't get ahead of myself, but I do think that it would make sense for me to be the one to come after. Which I do think that would make sense to happen in 2025. I think Curry would probably be added at the start, and then I might join in, near the end of the year or something like that. That's my theory, at least. That does also bring up some people who have not yet played in, MCC, who are good, who potentially could play, like Radoons. I think Red is on paper the the player that makes the most sense to potentially, or the newcomer that makes the most sense to potentially play, who is a really good player out of the remaining list. I think a lot of the ones that people were hoping for or maybe thought were like copium actually happened, whether it was a one-time or not. So I think Red is kind of the remaining, most ideal top frag, full newcomer, has never touched the events before type of player. So I'm curious if Red will get a chance at playing in 2025. Considering how MCC is handled, I'm not really sure. I feel like there's a lot of room to potentially have newcomers, but then also not always, because sometimes there's a theme to an event. Maybe it's a throwback theme or a whatever theme in which, adding a newcomer may be a little bit trickier. And sometimes you have something like a Twitch Rivals EU where they suddenly need a lot of people. However, or like a Pride, people need a lot of people, or the event, needs some people. However, Red doesn't really qualify for Pride, obviously. Red doesn't qualify for Twitch Rivals EU because he is NA based. So that kind of limits the options a little bit. I'm very curious to see if Red will make an appearance in MCC anytime soon. I really hope so, because I think he would fit in very well. I think he'd fit in, but he would be a very nice breath of fresh air. He's a very different type of top player, I think. I think he's more of a comedy-focused guy who still has a competitive edge to him, and he will definitely try. But I think he is more of a, entertainment-based POV. And as much as calling people replacement obviously sucks, I do think he is going to be the closest you're going to get to someone who will fill the Technoblade slot. I said it. I think Red is the best candidate. I know I'm right there. He is probably just slightly a better candidate than me to fill that slot, in my opinion, at least. So that's that. Obviously, also shouldn't forget, right above Red on this list is Doc M77. I've been saying this for so many events. That should be the next ad. All right, it's such a freebie. It's so free. It's like Smant being in Kickoff is such a free ad. Doc is such a free ad for the next MCC. Please, Scott, just do it, man. It works so well. It's perfect. He wants to play. He's a Hermitcraft member. He's popular. He's not that insane at the game. He's gonna be okay. He'll probably hold up decently well, but he's not gonna be like Joel, I don't think, at least. So I don't know. There's no reason besides not wanting to add newcomers to not add Doc, in my opinion. I think Doc makes by far the most sense to be the next newcomer for MCC, but that's my opinion. Anyways, so there's this list, etc. Right? I could go over every single newcomer potentially, but this list was a little bit iffy. There's some people on here that really don't make sense, and then some people I'd be like, yeah, sure. I also ended up making a list, which we can look over, and I'll just go over every single person. This might take a long time, but I'll go over every single player on this list that I had, and look at whether it makes sense for them to still be added. Starting with the first tier, which was the new from NonCanon. This was the tier of players who had played in only the non-canon events. This is before, canon and non-canon didn't exist anymore, so new from special events, it would be more so. From Season 3 and Season 2 for the most part, and also some Season 1. And seeing if it makes sense for them to play at some point in the event. Eloise obviously played multiple events. She is definitely a regular now. 4C, I think, could happen. Lifesteal, I think, is going to be trickier because they don't know that many people, but 4C, personality-wise, really does fit. Akko and Oppo ended up playing in Pride. Booster, I think, is unlikely, as much as I'd love to see Booster in. I don't think it would make sense. Grace, I don't think is much in the Minecraft scene anymore, so it wouldn't really make sense. Ollie played in Rivals EU, so he might potentially be a Rivals EU exclusive player, or maybe he could also make a return regularly. I haven't heard much from Max. I don't know if Max would play. Mid Mystic, same thing. Lifestealers are a little bit trickier. I think 4C would make a bit more sense than Mid Mystic. Maddie would be really fun. I don't know if she knows Scott, but I think she'd be a really good personality add for sure in the event. I think it'd be really fun. Misty, I assume, is mostly going to be a Pride exclusive player because obviously MCC doesn't want to put too many higher tier players in regularly, so it makes sense for Misty to be someone who plays, consistently every single year at least one time with Pride, which would make a lot of sense. Olive Sleepy, I don't really think is much in the Minecraft scene anymore, or even in the streaming scene anymore, so I don't think they'd end up playing. Again, Piso played in, I think, Pride and Ender Cup, so probably a consistent player to appear in those types of events. Jack Parasite, similar to Maddie, I think would be a fantastic personality add. I do think Maddie makes a little bit more sense for MCC specifically. However, I do think Jack Parasite is a fantastic potential newcomer to add, because I think he really easily meshes with people he isn't familiar with, and also he is familiar with a handful of people in the roster. Harry played in Pride with, I think, Sarah and Shadow at Noon. I don't know exactly everybody's name, so I'm sorry if I mistook some people. I don't think Ravs was on that team, but there was at least some Yogs people in Pride. I do think that could happen again, or maybe we'll see just some of the Yogs cast members occasionally. I really do also think that Harry would make for a really interesting regular MCC ad. I do think out of the Yogs members, he makes the most sense to potentially be added, because he's also like in that skill range tier of players that I think MCC, could benefit from having. They're like right in the middle, and kind of could, make things a little bit more unexpected and a bit more interesting. I think that's why Harry could be interesting to see. Laguno. I would love to see Laguno in. I do know that he does have contact with Scott. I have no clue if Laguno is asked to be in. I do think personality-wise, he also makes a lot of sense. MCC is a bit more like YouTube or Minecraft YouTuber focused, so someone like Laguno is really just from that genre of creator. Makes sense. I do think the rest of Leg's team don't really make as much sense to be in, so I think Laguno would be the main rep. Wade, as much as I would love to see it, doesn't really make sense to get added at this point. And then I don't think Nestor would make it a return. And then Cleo probably is going to be only someone we'll see in Pride, or maybe Cleo will be the next Hermit to, become a more regular participant. So that's all the previous non-canon players, blah, blah, whatever covered, right? Then we have Minecrafters, which is quite the interesting list, isn't it? This video was me picking 100 potential newcomers for MCC Season 4, and as you can see, I definitely had a bit of a stretch in this, so instead of covering every single person going yes and no, I will only go for the people that I think make sense. No, I won't. I actually will go over the entire thing. Anyways, Atal at the top of the list. I still think Atal would be really cool. I would love to see Atal make an appearance in MCC. I do think he is a bit limited potentially with his teammates' options. I think he's on the realm that Toby recently launched, so he might know a few more people. He might be a bit more familiar with some people, but Atal would be really cool. I think personality-wise, he's amazing, and also in terms of representing a community. He's French, I think, so a French rep. I know Shadoon already exists, but Shadoon is more of a Spanish rep than a French rep. Having a proper French rep would be really cool. And seeing him, dude, an Atal and Shadoon duo would be fantastic. I'm going to be so honest, that would be so sick. Do a Shadoon, Toby, Atal, and Fit or something team, and that would be such a banger team for Season 5 kickoff. What a absolutely fire team that could be. So I'd love to see that. Fit played, Curry played, Fine played, Lewis played, Nerdy I don't think would happen, Poundy I don't think would happen, Silver I don't think would happen, BenX wouldn't happen, Boomer probably wouldn't happen, Aaron wouldn't happen, Astellic wouldn't happen, Hasvik wouldn't happen, Crow I think could, Crow would kind of make sense. Crow is, part of the, the UK like group that, is adjacent to a lot of the MCC players, so I think Crow could be a good add. Kyle I would love to see. Kyle is a bit of an anomaly in terms of his skill range because he's recently had a massive improvement, so he might just be a little bit too good for MCC addition potential. But I think for Rising, he is such a shoe-in player as long as there are enough people at least left for him to be paired up with. Nuke would be interesting. I don't know if it would make too much sense, but it would be interesting for sure. It would be fun to see another Scottish rep. Pangy. I think Pangy with the Realm is making a massive improvement for his chances in any Minecraft event, really, including Block Wars, because, he plays sometimes, but Pangy on the Realm has introduced himself to a lot more people and to a whole new audience, so I think he's just familiarized himself a lot more in the event, or in the Minecraft scene, which I think will help him a lot in terms of maybe branching out of just lifestyle content, and I think MCC-wise, obviously, Scott isn't on the Realm, so a contact with, a connection with Scott is a requirement to get in MCC. But I do think Pangy, obviously with, cool with Toby, it is going to set him up to potentially be in Rising or something like that, and make an appearance at some point. Maybe 2026, but I think that he's making a lot of progress, which is good. Zam played in Rising and would be a really cool lifesteal member to see being added to MCC regularly. I don't think it would happen, but I would love to see that type of stuff happen. Sandwich played, which we'll see if he makes a return again. Squid Kid, I don't really think would make sense. Tango played, I played. Zine, I don't feel like would make too much sense anymore, but I guess it could still kind of work. Cookie played, Cam doesn't really make sense. Mythzan, I wouldn't really expect. Ballistic Squid, maybe if they do like a throwback type of thing with Dan, maybe, but otherwise probably not. I already talked about Doc. Ivory Chill, I don't think would make sense. Clown, similarly to Pangy, is doing a lot of good work in terms of branching out of just lifesteal and on the realm at least, you know, contacting or getting in contact with a lot more people. Fantastic work there. And also, he's obviously a very iconic name. He's very recognizable. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott knew of Clown Pierce. And I do think, you know, whether it's like a nod to the parkour civilization, a guest appearance from Clown and Evbo and Cookie God again, and then maybe like Seawat would be fire. I don't think that would make sense for MCC too much, but if they ever wanted to do some type of popular Minecraft reference, that would be gas. That would be heat. And it wouldn't be OP either. Clown is exclusively really good at PvP. Cookie did okay in MCC, and Fbo I think is pretty much exclusively really good at parkour. So it would probably be a pretty weak team, but I think it'd be fun, so that's all that matters really. Ash played in Rising. I think he probably has... I think before the event happened, I would say that Ash had a smaller chance to get in than Zam. I think they're honestly on an equal page here because Ash had that massive dodge bolt moment, which I think put a lot of attention on him, and I think maybe could have, you know, brought some awareness on him potentially making another appearance. He also is, you know, not as strong as Zam, but I also think he's a bit more or a bit less of a reliable player than Zam. Also, Ash, I just remembered throughout the practice sessions, Ash was saying that like he didn't even really want to be an MCC that much. I assume he was joking, but you know, some people could take that the wrong way. Anyways, Jevon returned. Caboodle could maybe work. I just don't think we're gonna see much lifesteal besides maybe Red, Zam, and Ash. And then Jumper would be really fun. I don't think Jumper's on this list. I think Jumper could be really cool to see in. I don't think it would happen because she doesn't know Scott, but I think another strong female player would be really cool. I think it would. I mean, Haley recently was a major, you know, cool moment. Having Jumper thrown in the mix would be sick. Also because that's a lifesteal rep and overall I think just a net positive potentially to the MCC roster in my opinion. Vortex I don't think would really make sense. Big B stats would be cool. I don't really know too much about them, but I know that his name has been thrown around a lot. Time Dio could be interesting. I don't really know if he does much. I think he's just a Hypixel admin now. Stress Monster I don't think would happen anymore. Spoke, probably not. Skiz played. Rochambeau, probably not. Parker, oh dude, Parker would be so sick, but it's not happening, man. It's so unlikely, unfortunately. Red already spoke about. Parrot, probably not. X played. Yode's Gold, probably not. Charlie would be cool, but I would be surprised. Maybe Rising. Rattles, maybe for like a Pride, you know, appearance if Scott's aware of Rattles. I think that'd be really fun. But otherwise, maybe probably not. Ross, I think Ross is a fantastic candidate for MCC as well. I think Ross would make a lot of sense. They've recently been, you know, around the block, you could say, for Minecraft content. I think Ross is on Rats, or was on Rats, I think, or at least adjacent. I think Ross was on Pirates, at least. And then Ross is in the Realm. So very familiar to, you know, Scott's group and Scott himself. I think it would make sense. I don't know if Ross is interested, but it would be very fun. And then Vintage Beef would be cool. Vintage Beef obviously had a lot of involvement with Creo cards, but I don't know if Beef streams, and I do think streaming is a requirement for MCC, so that might be a bit tricky. Then, furthermore, we have Variety, which I think is really funny that Haley is in Variety when she almost exclusively does Minecraft. But sure, I think at the time maybe she was more of a Variety person, or not. Maybe I was just being silly Billy. Anyways, Variety-wise, I think a lot of these people wouldn't really make sense. Haley obviously already played, Chilled played, Smant played, Lexi played, but besides that, I mean, Jack maybe, considering he's been, you know, he's casted twice for MCC now, so maybe he could potentially play, but I'm not too sure. Then, like, Creek would be cool, maybe, but I feel like that opportunity has maybe, you know, it's maybe a thing from the past. I know Joe Bart probably is still a highly requested person. I just don't really see that happening. So that's my opinion there. Furthermore, Sleepy, maybe if there's like a opportunity for him to be invited by either me or 5UP, that's kind of it. He is interested, but that's kind of the only reason I would see that happen. And then for the non-canon only, I mean, Elam would be fun. Leslie could be fun. I think those two would make sense. And then Jody would be fun. I don't really think Jody would play. But maybe Elam and Leslie could make an appearance at some point. And that's kind of it. That's my opinion on the 1 year update on these videos. Which newcomers are left? Well, I've gone over everyone a little bit. I think some of the standouts are Doc M77 is going to be probably the most, the most standout potential newcomer from this entire list. I think Radoons, if we have room for brand new high tier players who've never touched the event before, Radoons is probably the best candidate. And then I think Ross, in terms of like, Minecraft SMP adjacent person, I think would make the most sense. That's probably my top 3. In terms of, some less likely people, Etoile would be really fun. I think Etoile would be really hype, really fun. I think he'd fit decently well. And you could do a lot of, special type of team combos with him. And just to make it a top 5, I don't really know who I would put at number 5, honestly. I'm not too sure. I feel like there's a lot of room for this top 5. Or a room for the 5th slot to kind of be filled with anybody. I guess from this list, I would put Pixel Riffs up there. I think Pixel Riffs would be really fun. They're in the adjacent to all the groups from MCC pretty much, or at least the the Life and Hermits groups. So that could be fun to maybe see Pixel Riffs. And yeah, that's kind of it. For the rest, I mean, obviously Hypnotized and any Hermit on this list. I think is just someone who could always potentially play at some point, because it's, a Hermit dominant event, so any Hermit would make sense. Anyways, that's my opinion on potential newcomers for MCC 2025, Season 5, whatever you want to call it. Let me know your thoughts on the people that I went over, or maybe if you have people in mind that you really think would make a lot of sense for MCC next year. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.